You should honor thy mother, thy father, and Hank Williams Sr. Seriously, tributes have been a staple in country music history. You'll have one artist who will cover hits from another artist's catalog, and then that artist will turn around and cover that artist's hit from another catalog, and so on and so forth. It apparently was a great way to recycle songs and to sell a whole bunch of albums and make a lot of money, back when you could make a lot of money selling physical copies of music. In that long and storied history, what I'm going to talk about today is my personal all-time favorite tribute album. It's Mr. Hag Told My Story by Johnny Paycheck, 1981. One of my favorite nerd things to do is to go check out album reviews of my personal favorite albums, especially ones that I feel like have been underrepresented. I like to go and read the predictably off, terrible, misinformed 3-star review of a work that I love and adore. When I went online to read about Mr. Hag Told My Story by Johnny Paycheck, the first place I went was my default site, which was All Music Guide. And to my surprise, it was the most articulated review about an album I've ever read. It was on point with everything I feel. It was by Stephen Thomas, might get this wrong pronunciation-wise, Erlewine. And he gave the album 5 stars, and he talked about all the things that I love about what makes the record great, how it's got a late night conversational feel and that type of thing. So you could probably just stop watching this and go read his review on All Music Guide. An amazing moment happens right at the beginning of the album. You have Johnny Paycheck, and he talks about how much he thinks of Merle Haggard's music and how much it's meant to him. And he starts in this beautiful first song he picks called Turning Off a Memory. But soon after the song begins, Merle comes in, and his voice seems in the production to be a little distant. So it's almost like he's a ghost haunting his own tribute album. And he's in conversation with Johnny as they're having the song. It's really, it's meta and it's weird, but it's also wonderful. It really kind of sets the template for how it is just kind of like this person's personal discussion about how much Merle's music has meant to him. It's really cool. When he went about making the record, he made a very smart and what seems to be an obvious choice. He got Merle's backing band, The Strangers, to play on it. I mean, don't muck it up, right? This isn't hard. So it, of course, sounds great. They're one of the best to ever do it. So that's really cool. And then another thing I really love about the record is that the songs were hand-picked and crafted really well. It's not by any stretch a greatest hits album. You won't hear Mama Tried, etc. on it. And, it's kind of like a music nerd guy. That's cool, right? You can't ever like what are the most popular songs. But seriously, it helps tie the songs together, the ones that he picks. And it's just a really, really cool mood that kind of sets the tone through the whole record. And another thing that stood out to me that I don't think I'd ever really appreciated before about Johnny Paycheck was the guy can sing. When you put him in this scenario where he's doing Merle Haggard songs with Merle Haggard on some of the occasions, he hangs right with them, if not then some. And then on a deeper level, what I really like is he manages to get across not only the emotion in the songs, but you can feel how much they've meant to him, how much he loves Merle's work. So that's a really cool part of Mr. Hag Told My Story. The song I'd love to highlight from Mr. Hag Told My Story is All Night Lady. It's a prison tune, which seemed appropriate considering we're talking about Johnny and Merle, who've both spent a little time behind bars. The way I learned about Johnny Paycheck's journeys outside of the law was from an incredible episode of television. Mike Judge, the guy behind Beavis and Butthead and King of the Hill and movies Office Space and Idiocracy, has done an animated series called Tales from the Tour Bus. I believe it's 2 seasons now, but the first season was all country music artists. And the debut episode was on Johnny Paycheck. It's almost like he's like, I want to tell this story about Johnny Paycheck. So he did this whole thing. Because the one on Johnny is the best. It is just, his stories are wild. And it includes interviews with his touring band and managers and people who knew him. And the reenactment scene of when he shot a guy at a bar over, I believe it was an argument about hats that landed him in a prison in Ohio. It's hilarious and eye-opening and incredible. So I can't suggest it highly enough. Check out Tales from the Tour Bus by Mike Judge.
For Johnny, the success of Take This Job and Shove It had its highs and its highs.
And the next thing I knew, he was just a total cokehead.
He was sucking a lot of powder, a lot of it.
We were driving down the road and the bus, and he'd run out of cocaine. So he gets on the radio. He said, "Hey, out there, breaker, breaker." He said, "This is Johnny Paycheck. I want some cocaine and don't care what it costs." So here a couple of truckers were going down the road. We ended up going into a rest area.
These guys brought it back and handed it to him and said, "Here's your cocaine, man."
The cocaine they had, I wouldn't give it to a dog.
He said, "Boy, that's some good stuff." And he spent, I know for a fact, $16 million up his nose. He'd just sit there. There's nothing worse than a hillbilly with a hit record.
Speaking of Johnny and Merle spending a little time behind bars, when I was YouTube diving late one night looking at country music videos, I came across a clip that absolutely blew my mind. It was Johnny doing his hit, The Only Hell My Mama Ever Raised, and it was at a prison. And it was rough shot. It was like the audio wasn't great and the video quality was poor. And I was like, what is this? Because I wasn't aware that this existed, like as far as his albums go or anything like that. So I started following the breadcrumbs from that guy's YouTube site, and I went to a Facebook page where he had posted other videos from this performance in prison. And turns out he was somebody who knew somebody of Johnny Paycheck and posted these. And I dug even deeper, and it turns out, this is the most incredible thing to me, that Johnny Paycheck filmed a prison concert at Chillicothe Prison in Ohio while he was an inmate there. He got the warden to let him perform a show while he was an inmate. You know, this whole thing about the outlaw music and is it a positive or bad thing for the artists who are linked into it. Man, Johnny Paycheck was a real thing. That dude was an outlaw. He performed a show at the prison he was an inmate at. The footage is incredible, and then it gets even better. Merle Haggard performed. He flew in and did a handful of songs with Johnny at the prison, including a song that he wrote for what was supposed to become a special called Inside the Walls. So there is a Merle Haggard all-time prison song classic called Inside the Walls that he only performed that one time, and it exists on video. You can find it online. All the source materials, you'll see it in various places now, all came from that same guy. When I first discovered it, I went and found everything I could and downloaded and saved the videos and put it all together. There's a little local news station. You can find a clip of that. And the video of Merle doing Inside the Walls, you can see prisoners and they're holding signs of the lyrics in the front row as he sings it. It's really moving. And then there's also a version of Sing Me Back Home. To me, that is the greatest version of Sing Me Back Home I've ever seen. I found on a site, and I apologize, I can't remember where I saw this, someone who had interviewed the gentleman who produced it. I believe his name, and I might get this wrong too, is Billy Don Burns. And apparently it got caught up in like a hassle with the financiers, and it never came out. So there's this footage of Johnny Paycheck and Merle Haggard doing a prison concert that is just sitting on a shelf somewhere. And that is my like most wanted thing that I know that exists as far as like outtakes or live footage or anything in any genre that I would love to see get released. So I hope someday we'll all get to see from inside the walls the Johnny Paycheck prison special.